Test 1 2. Test 1 2. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to a very impromptu episode of the Preston Sports Podcast, coming at you on Sunday, July the 4th. Happy 4th of July. Happy birthday, America. Very blessed to live in a free country where I can make a podcast and talk stupidly about sports that won't matter at the end of the day, but I can do it because I love it. I had this idea. I was in the shower about 5 minutes ago, and I said, you know what would be a really good podcast episode? Rookies that are going to disappoint or probably will disappoint. And I figured, why the heck not? And this doesn't mean they're going to be bad necessarily. You know, for example, I'll be talking about Jamar Chase. I don't think he's going to perform like a top 5 draft pick this year, not necessarily because of his own doing, mainly because of the team around him. But we'll get into that later. But before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, boop the notification bell, and do it, please, and comment down below what you think. But let's get right into it. So we're gonna start, like I said, Jamar Chase. I mean, I don't know if I have to explain this that much. Joe Burrow is coming off a very serious knee injury. So we'll see how much his mobility is affected because of that. I think it was pretty obvious that his mobility was a big part of his game last year, and it has to be given the offensive line. They did not do a good job at addressing it. They have Jonah Williams, Xavier Serafilo at left guard, Trey Hopkins at center, Jackson Carman, and then Riley Reef. Like this team is not good in any way, shape, or form. So, the offensive line just isn't good. So I don't think Joe Burrow's gonna have enough time to find Jamar Chase a lot. I don't think that needs to be explained that much. So as far as Jamar Chase goes, I'm thinking he's probably only gonna have 700 to 800 yards, and that's pretty good for a wide receiver rookie. But if you're taking someone in the top 5, you're expecting them to have over 1,000 yards. I don't think he'll get more than... I bet he'll be able to get a lot of touchdowns. I think if the Bengals get into the red zone... I mean, I don't know. It's difficult. I just don't think I think he's going to disappoint, and that doesn't mean I think he's going to have a bad year. I just think he's probably just not going to have the best year ever. Sticking with wide receivers, Devontae Smith, I think, is also gonna disappoint just a little bit, and that has nothing to do with him being good. From what I've seen, he looks really good, but I just don't like Jalen Hurts. I don't like him as a quarterback. I don't necessarily like the Eagles' offensive line. Let me double check. I believe I know Jason Kelce is still at center. It's his last year there. They still have Lane Johnson. I don't think they have Jason Peters anymore. Let's check real quick. It is Andre Dillard, Isaac Samalu, Jason Kelce, Brandon Brooks, Lane Johnson. I don't think it's the best offensive line. I also don't think it's the worst offensive line. But as far as other weapons go, I mean, they don't have that much. Miles Sanders is a pretty good running back. Not the best in the world, but he's definitely like a top 25, top 20 running back. But Jalen Reagor and Travis Fulgham are the other 2 wide receivers. So Devontae Smith will be taking double coverage. Dallas Goedert is a pretty good tight end, but he'll be taking double coverage, and so I don't expect Jalen to be able to get the ball to him that much. As you normally see with number 1 wide receivers, and he's by far the most talented wide receiver on that roster. And I know people are like, don't knock him because of his size. I think the size will be a legitimate issue. Not saying that he can't perform well and that he can't find ways around it, because we've seen wide receivers like Tyreek Hill, who aren't necessarily the tallest or the biggest, still do really well. But I think it's important to consider that he is a rookie. People have rookie struggles, and I think even just mentally, rookies will struggle a bit more trying to get adapted to the speed of the NFL. But if you take a kid that size, like, I don't know if the Eagles play the Seahawks at all this year, but if he gets popped hard by Jamal Adams or by Bobby Wagner, that could bring up serious considerations. And I don't know. I just don't know. I haven't seen it from him to take hits from these top tier guys in the NFL, because everyone can take a hit from a top guy in college, but getting to the NFL and taking hits from those guys, that's an entirely different level. And also the physicality level you see from corners. Again, I don't know who the Eagles play, but they have like James Bradberry. Can he handle a double team from James Bradberry and Xavier McKinney, or James Bradberry and Jabril Peppers? Because I imagine James Bradberry will follow him 2 times a year. So I think you'll probably see something probably similar to Devontae Smith, maybe around 700, 800 yards, handful of touchdowns, 4 to 6 probably. But yeah, those 2 wide receivers I think will disappoint a little bit. Now to Najee Harris. I don't know why people think that Najee Harris stands a chance. And I like Najee Harris. Obviously, he's a Steeler, so I have a deep hatred in my soul for him. Blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, the Steelers are doing nothing for this kid. I mean, you're probably your best offensive lineman was David DeCastro. Cut. So now it's Chuku. I know his name's Chuck, so I'm going to call him Chucks because I don't want to say his name. It's Chuck Okorafor, Kevin Dotson, Kendrick Green, Trey Turner, Zach Banner. It's just not a good offensive line. And people be like, oh, PFF said they were good. Because Ben was getting the ball out in less than 2 seconds. So obviously they're not going to be able to allow sacks or quarterback pressures because the defense doesn't even get time to do it. Like Najee Harris, I'm sorry. People will say, oh, Saquon can't produce because he doesn't have an elite or he doesn't have a good enough offensive line. He's a heck of a lot better than Najee Harris. Najee Harris isn't going to be able to do garbage. I'm saying 600 yards max, probably near 1,000 total purpose yards if you want to throw some screens out for Najee. I mean, the receiving game is probably where he's going to be able to get his money, but rushing the ball, when you just hand him the ball and say, here's some blocks, go ahead, play football, this team is just not the team to get it done on. Maybe the Steelers of 5 years ago or 10 years ago where it was like, yeah, we're going to play some hard-nosed, smash-mouth football, but that's not who the Steelers are anymore. They're a bunch of stupid, tick-tocking dum-dums who can't play football, but they can... sorry, I just don't like the Steelers. Devin Bush tweeted out, if you're a grown man and you have TikTok on your phone, you better stay TF away from me. I don't think he knows that Juju's on his team. I mean, I know he came out and he was like, nah, I wasn't talking about Juju, but like, come on. He's a grown man and he has TikTok. So and that's besides the point. Another, I guess I'm just sticking with position groups. I'm just kind of thinking these off the top of my head. Another running back in the first round, specifically, I think is going to disappoint. Sorry, Travis Etienne. I think Travis Etienne is going to disappoint. Also, not his fault. Now, I think of the teams I've mentioned, this is probably one of the better offensive lines. Cam Robinson, Andrew Norwell, Brandon Linder, AJ Kane, Jawan Taylor. Obviously, it's not the best in the world, but I still think it's pretty good. I think Travis Etienne is just going to a tough situation. It looks like on this depth chart they have him as the number 1 back, and that could just be ESPN. But, he's going to a 2-back system now. James Robinson was really good. I don't think the Jaguars should have taken Travis Etienne. I think that was a wasted first-round pick. I don't think they needed a running back. They have James Robinson and Carlos Hyde, so I guess they took Travis Etienne for that third-down receiving back capability that he has, because James Robinson, it's not his forte. Carlos Hyde's more of a power guy. And so I guess you're taking Travis Etienne for that purpose. But do you really take a situational running back in the first round? So, similar to Najee Harris, but for a completely other reason, he's just splitting carries with James Robinson. So I think you're not going to see too much elite production out of Travis Etienne. As far as running goes, I think you'll probably see some pretty good wide receiver numbers. He will probably take a good amount of snaps as a slot receiver, stuff like that. But I just don't think you're going to see any real elite production from him. I'm just now realizing 3 of the teams I picked are divisional rivals, so I guess I'll have to try to find a Browns player I think could disappoint. But Rashad Bateman is a wide receiver I think will disappoint. And not because I don't like Rashad Bateman. I think he's pretty good. I just don't like Lamar Jackson throwing capabilities. I mean, People talk about all the time how, Lamar would be really good at throwing the ball a lot more if he had better wide receivers. But the stats are Lamar's receivers like 23rd in drops. And that meaning there were 22 teams that had more drops. But at the same time, Lamar ranked 27th in catchable passes. So, not the best. People talk about his completion percentage being so good. It's only, for example, it's 1 point above Baker Mayfield's. What game did they sit him in? Was it week 16? It probably was, I guess. But you look at his stats this year, didn't even surpass 3,000 yards. Only threw 27 touchdowns. What was his average per attempt? Yards gained per pass attempt was 7.3. His adjusted yards went up to 7.6. And his yards per completion, there we go. Per completion was 11. There we go. That's better. His yards per game was down to 183. And, I just don't... You saw it with Juju, and I forget what other wide receivers were in this free agency class, but wide receivers just don't want to go to Baltimore. Sammy Watkins ended up going, and Rashad Bateman was drafted. And it's not necessarily an insult to Lamar Jackson, but this just isn't a system where wide receivers are set to have the best numbers. You're looking at J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards probably being 2 800-yard rushers again. And then, Lamar Jackson probably being around a 1,000-yard rusher because that's his real talent. And that's no slight to him. He's a better runner than he's a thrower. I mean, that's no slight. He's really good at running the football. Throwing the football has some to be desired. But, people talk about it like this kid or this wide receiver should love to go to Baltimore. It's just not a system for them to succeed. Mark Andrews will be the leading receiver there, I suspect. That's just the way it is, and it kind of sucks. Kevin Zeitler, their offensive line, Lamar will have a tough time this year. Alejandro Villanueva should not be starting at right tackle. I'm going to go on a little rant real quick, so excuse me. But there is absolutely no way Alejandro Villanueva should be starting at right tackle. He's not a right tackle. He's a left tackle. You saw Jedrick Wills from the Browns this year have difficulties transitioning from right to left because, and he's a college player. Joe Thomas, one of the best tackles of all time, said you cannot late into your career switch. He said Jedrick Wills is athletic and he's young, so he can make that switch. But Alejandro Villanueva is in the league 10 plus years at this point. He won't be efficient. And even at left tackle, he was not that good last year. So I don't understand what you expect. Maybe he's just starting for a couple games for Tyree Phillips to come in. But you just cannot have Alejandro Villanueva starting and expect Lamar to have a clean pocket. At the same time, you have Kevin Zeitler, who's regressed massively in the last 3 years. He's nowhere near what he was in Cincinnati or Cleveland. He wasn't that for New York. He's not going to be that for the Ravens. The right side of this team is a legit problem for this team, and that's just tough. Sorry, Baltimore. Who's a Browns player that could probably disappoint? Let's see, who'd they take? Gregory Rousseau. I want to say, you'll probably see, I hate to say disappoint, but Tommy Togiai, a defensive tackle out of Ohio State University, I believe he was taken in the 3rd round. It's the 3rd or 4th round. You'll probably won't see that much out of him. I don't suspect he'll start. I imagine it's going to be Andrew Billings and Malik Jackson. So you'll see him in a rotational role. It kind of makes sense to take a 3rd round or a rotational player in the 3rd round. You might see Anthony Schwartz kind of not have that great of a year. He's more a 3rd round wide receiver out of Auburn, real speed guy. Speed is really the main part of his game right now. He's got some route running ability and he's got decent hands, but that's something they've been working on in training camp. So you'll probably see a good amount of drops from him, honestly. Gregory Newsome going into the league playing corner will probably suffer from that. Probably get burned a couple times, I suspect. I don't think he'll overall be a disappointing player, but you never really know. There was one more I had in mind. Who was I thinking of? Raiders offensive tackle Alex Leatherwood had no deal going in the first round. Let me look it up. Alex Leatherwood. No, not Alex Leatherwood. I mean, I don't think he should have been taken there. But Jamin Davis. I believe the Redskins drafted him 19th overall. Jamin Davis. Yeah, let's pull up. I mean, I just don't think he'll be that good. Let's pull up his combine prospect profile. Can I read it? Yeah, so they took him 19. His prospect grade was a 6.35. They say he will be a starter in the first 2 seasons. 6'3 and a half, 235, hands at 9.5 inches. Here we go. Played in 13 games as a reserve during his redshirt freshman season. He had 10 tackles and 1 interception. What about this past season? As a junior, he led the Wildcats with 102 tackles and 1.5 sacks while playing 10 games. He missed the Alabama game with COVID protocols. He intercepted 3 passes, returning 1 for a touchdown. His NFL comparison is Kiko Alonso. He's lightly experienced, but ascending inside linebacker prospect. Strengths, he's a big linebacker. What are his weaknesses? He has just 11 career starts. He's talented but inexperienced. Needs to diagnose and response. Average toughness. So he doesn't take on lead blockers very well. I don't do that either. Room for improvement with hand usage and pad level as a tackler, and underestimates pursuit angle. So stuff like that, that's all. Some of that is coachable. He's inexperienced, so I don't know if you knew this. Most NFL rookies are inexperienced in NFL football. Need to diagnose and respond. That just has to do with him reading the play, reading what's happening in front of him. That's going to take a bit. So, I mean, maybe you'll see him later in the season kind of come into his own, but I'm just predicting you'll see him disappoint. Alex Leatherwood, too, probably. He won't be that good. I don't know what he was doing or what the Raiders are doing taking him in the first round. I mean, at the end of the day, they could have taken the safety they took. I'd forget if it was Javon Holland or Trayvon Moehrig. I think it was Trayvon Moehrig. They could have taken Trayvon Moehrig in the first round where they took Alex Leatherwood and taken Alex Leatherwood in the second round. So they got both their guys. But still, why would you take him in the first round? Anyways, that's going to be it for this episode of the Preston Sports Podcast. Thank you for listening. It's impromptu. Tomorrow, I'll probably do rookies that will do better than you expect. I'm a big fan of... I'm going to get super into it this coming up draft, but I'm a big fan of prospect searching and hunting. I did a mock draft where I think I got the first 5 picks right, and then it went real downhill from there. I believe I got a good amount of the picks right. I'm pretty proud of what I did. But, yeah, I will talk to you guys tomorrow, which is Monday. Have a wonderful day. Make sure to like, subscribe, boop the notification bell, and I'll talk to you guys on Monday. Peace out.